What'd you see, Agent?
It's some sort of environment.
What? I cannot see.
Why is it here? What?
Wait.
Windows is an OS, but a more comprehensive summary of Windows would be spyware, bloatware and adware first, and as for the OS aspect, that would place further down the list. Microsoft wants you to pay $200 for an operating system that steals, collects and sells your data, an operating system that comes with ads, that runs poorly, and that gobbles your resources like a compute fiend. So I think you can also add scam to that long list of traits. So, how do we take the Microsoft out of Microsoft Windows? Well, we cannot, but we can certainly help it. Considering that stock 25H2 will idle at around 4GB of RAM and comes with egregious bloat.
What's this, you fucking piece of shit? What's this? Huh? What's this, motherfucker?
I've cooked up my own Windows, and this baby idles at 1.2 gig without Explorer or 1.4 otherwise. This is still pretty bad considering that a Linux distro will idle between 500 MB and 1 gig, but at least it's way better than the stock, because I literally can't afford my OS alone consuming 4 gigs of RAM. Okay, so let me set the stage before the disclaimers and the hows. The intention with this was to create the best platform for native gaming, unless your games also run native on Linux. So we are looking for minimal RAM consumption and lean scheduling. So in order to set expectations straight, I'll tell you what has been prioritized. First, obviously internet connection, so this can go online. Second, mouse and keyboard in. Third, audio out. And finally, a more controversial point of discussion, I decided to keep Windows Update. All of this though with some caveats that will be expanded on later. For anyone interested, we are running 16 gigs of RAM at 3200 MT CL16, 18, 1838 with an R3 4100 at 4.45 GHz. If you wanna learn more about it, check the gaming below minimum requirements video, because we are running the demo on that exact platform. Also, for screen cap I won't be using recording software because that will obviously alter CPU and RAM usage, as does Task Manager actually, but we kinda need that obviously. Unfortunately, I don't have the capture card on me, so we are stuck with camera footage of the monitor, like in the good old days. But before all of that, let's address the elephant in the room, dynamic memory management, something that 25H2 is good at, not. From what I have seen, going down to 8 or 4 GB with this cut down build doesn't really affect RAM consumption that much. At best it frees 50 to 100 MB and at worst it stays the same. I have tested this configuration on my 32 gig machine also, and in that case I saw around and under 2 gigs, so an extra 400 to 500 MB tax when doubling the RAM amount. Also, if you are of the opinion that unused RAM is wasted RAM, please click off the video. I personally like the functionality of an OS, whilst also leaving as much memory as possible for other applications I might want to run. So in my humble opinion, unused RAM by the OS is more RAM for literally anything else. And no amount of dynamic memory management is saving the shit show that is stock Windows 11. I think people have been psyopsed into thinking it's okay to be running bloat on their machines. And also, again, the same thing with the scheduler. If you think that it's fine for your kernel to be doing housework harder than a French maid, then you deserve the experience that is stock Windows. Full disclaimer, I'm not here to show you how to brick your OS or how to skew the ISO media or write an auto unattended or run third-party scripts to disable or delete Windows services, applications or tasks. That is outside the scope of this video and I think would violate Google and Microsoft OS. With that being said, if you think that Service X is crucial and it's not present here, then it's probably bloat. Also, I hope no sane person will think of dialing this, but I did for the past weeks, and I have to say, running 4 cores clocked out of their minds on this install was the snappiest Windows I've witnessed since the 7 days. It's definitely rivaling Linux in this aspect, of course with much less functionality, and obviously the upside of all games running native.
I don't know what to do about this anymore. I need to burn it down someday. I used to work night times.
And if after what you've seen you came to the conclusion that this looks a whole lot like maintenance hell, yeah, then you'd be correct, it is. I would like to tell you what functionality is broken on this configuration, so without further ado, here is the list. Wireless LAN, wireless wide area, Bluetooth, other input apart from keyboard and mouse, privacy and security, so among other things, no mic input because that requires CAM SBC. The start is broken, but you can still see your list of apps and search with the classic on-screen keyboard style interface. Windows Defender. You know Windows is so full of crap nowadays because I didn't even get to shit on Defender properly. Any hope of running TPM secure boot dependent applications. Notification center, clock and calendar. Beware Nvidia users because the Nvidia app will not work without the notification center running. Trust me, I've tried. Also, I've left in Visual Basic script because this is an AMD platform and the chipset installer requires it. Trust me, I've tried without it. But you can easily remove that if you don't need it. Windows Power because that requires RPC. Printing, scanning, camera, MIDI, media cap. The ability to add a Microsoft account and all the functionality that it brings. Windows troubleshooting and diagnostic. Changing Windows language. Changing users or accounts and sign in or out. Sleep is unavailable, so you're left with shutdown and restart only. Any fancy theme, transparency or contrast options. Windows recovery, backup, restore and dism. Automatic disk defrag and trim, so you have to do it manual. Alternatively, you can also disable optimized drives and do it via PowerShell admin command. This one is semi-important because the NTFS compared to ext4 will create worse fragmentation. User account control. Anything Windows Store, Universal Windows Platform, MSIX, adjacent. BitLocker, history on the machine and a bunch of logging. Setting passwords, pins or biometrics. Windows-wide location services. Remote desktop, Hyper-V and virtualization. Search, any Xbox related services and games. Global macros or shortcuts. And many others that are of lesser significance. As I've said, you are basically left with wired internet, audio out, keyboard and mouse in, wired display, and a crippled Explorer, and that's your lot. Unfortunately, this means that some servicing will have to be manual, but this will run Steam, it will run most games, and I think this is one of the best options for gaming native if you exclude Linux native games. Okay, so now for the juicy stuff. Basically, you can get Windows working with a total of 37 services running, 50 scheduled tasks, and about 53 processes just for the OS alone. This is with drivers, and you can expect around 1.2 gig idle consumption. If you decide to use Explorer, then that will consume 200 MB extra. Now, I'll tell you why Windows needs these services and tasks, and I'll start with the services. WMI. You need this running for device manager, disk management, task scheduler, networking, and also some driver reporting such as GPU enum and smart info, as well as probably a lot more important stuff. State repo. This is used exclusively for MSIX, Universal Windows Platform, and the GUI won't let you disable it, but you can get around that with PowerShell. I kept it on here because it might break Windows Update and I haven't tested whether it does or not. SAM, do not disable this. You won't be able to get into Windows. It handles login as well as UAC if you have that enabled, and also did I mention that you should not disable it. RPC and RPC mapper. Again, do not disable these. They are responsible for IPC, DCOM, kernel transitions and other crucial OS things. Prof, refer to SAM. NSI, you need this for networking. MPS, I don't think I have to explain this one. LSM, refer to SAM. LANman, needed for networking. IP helper, again needed for networking. Font cache, you don't need this per se, as Windows will work just fine without font caching. Event system, this one is kind of interesting because it handles a lot of random stuff, from scheduler triggers to plug and play, shell events and volume event. Long story short, Windows kinda needs this. Display broker, I think this one is self-explanatory. DHCP, another one from the networking stack. DCOM. This handles COM, so a lot of stuff depends on it. Think plug and play, Windows Update, WMI, audio, scheduler, services and a bunch of stuff that you really want to be running or ready to run. Core messaging. This does low-level broker work in your session, and it supports Explorer, Start and input stack, as well as some UI events and display policy. Broker infrastructure. Another big one that you need. Windows says that it's for background tasks, but that's summarizing it a lot, I think. It's used mostly for WinRT applications, but it also backs shell, settings and COM. If I were to guess, you could probably get Windows running without it. but I wouldn't touch it. BFE, network and firewall stack, audio and audio endpoint. Again, self-explanatory. While we're here though, if you go a layer above, this is unrelated, but I wish Microsoft would do something about the Wasapi share delay, or it'd be really amazing if more games came with exclusive or ASIO output support, which, fun fact, is specified by Yamaha, because of course it is. Next is user manager, refer to SAM, text input management. I think you know what this is for. System events broker, refer to broker infrastructure. Schedule, landman server, networking stack. GP, another self-explanatory one. DNS cache, networking. Crypt, again, pretty easy to see why I need this. Refer to anything that requires trust, signatures or integrity, like Windows Update, security policy, installers and many other. AppX, this handles installations or deployments of store apps or MSIX packages, but more importantly .NET and VC++ runtime. WinHTTP Auto Proxy, networking. Plug and play, I hope I don't need to explain this one. NetProfM, networking. Time broker, it handles background universal Windows platform applications. I think you can get away with it disabled, but I haven't done much testing on it, so you may or may not need it. HID, Windows doesn't actually need this running, it's just that I have one of those keyboards with a stupid amount of auxiliary buttons that I frequently use, and they won't work without HID running. Clip, I recommend you read about Clip for yourself, as I haven't really looked into it that much. From what I've read, it handles licensing and DRM, but I haven't touched it yet. As I said, I don't know much about it, but you could probably run Windows without it if I were to guess. App info. Here its description is all you really need to know about it. It's responsible for UAC, AppV, MIC and installer detection, but most importantly, you cannot elevate without it. And that's it for services. Now onto the tasks. I won't explain each one because there are 45 and that will take a while. Instead, I will just group them. 2 for .NET, 4 for cleanup, 1 for CAM if you decide on using CAM, 3 for disk and integrity scan that are optional, 1 for device setup, 2 for DirectX, 2 for flighting, 16 for Windows Update, 1 for sound, 3 for PMP, 3 for shell, 1 for SPP, 1 for task manager, 3 for time sync, 1 for BFE, and 1 for Windows color. And that's it. That's what Windows needs for running with normal input, audio, networking, and update as a bonus. 37 services, from which Clip, Time Broker, and State Repo might not be needed, and 45 tasks, of which syspart repair data, integrity check and scan, and data integrity scan are optional, and flighting reconcile and shell update picture might again not be needed. This creates the process snapshot that you can see on screen right now. A total of 53 processes consuming 1.2 GB of RAM. As far as I am aware, this is the most optimal way to play Isaac. Now, I actually forgot to clarify the Explorer situation. I decided to keep the stock Explorer and not go for OpenShell because I like what Microsoft did with it for Windows 11, credit where it's due. Unlike some other UX elements like start and context menus and search, and the list goes on. But back to Explorer, and you might be wondering, why kill Explorer? Well, for one, it's the biggest consumer of RAM remaining, and 99% of applications will work just fine without Explorer. And in extreme cases, when you are running memory intensive applications and you happen to be memory bound, well, then this becomes more appealing. And also, Task Manager run alone already kind of gives you the keys to the kingdom, so you can certainly do without Explorer. Now, would I actually recommend you kill Explorer? Well, yes, but it's not the same approach, so I guess no. But there is always the option. But how does the system perform at startup and shutdown? Before that, let me remind you that we are limited to PCIe 3 by the CPU, and we are actually bouncing off the PCIe 3 limiter because we are running the system on a Crucial, rest in peace Crucial, P310 Gen 4 NVMe. So with that said, the thing turns on in 10.04 seconds, and ladies and gentlemen, the computer shuts down in 1.25 seconds. So that is faster than me keeping the front panel power button pressed with my toe until it dies, which is saying something. Another quirk of the system is the fact that somehow it bypasses the usual obligatory shutdown when killing a flagged service. So when you kill, for example, Update Orchestrator and press shutdown, it doesn't actually shut down, but if you terminate something more important, like RPC, then you'll be met with a BSOD, as in black screen of death. I don't know why Microsoft made some of the traditionally blue screens black, but here we are. This one states obviously that a critical process died, so that's useful. Well, is it possible to go past 1.2? Well, yes, if you decide against Windows Update. But more than that, there are still Clip, Time Broker and State Repo that you can test without, and the flighting and update picture tasks. Apart from that, I think server core with GUI will yield better results, but good luck running Jack on that. And there's also kernel custom drivers you can look into. Windows Development Kit is available on VS. Other than that, maybe just get a Steam Deck. Apparently their scheduler is pretty good. Alright, that's everything I wanted to talk about Windows in this video. In conclusion, please do not install Windows on your machine. It's damaging not only for your data and files, but also for your mental well-being. I recommend Bezite or CatchyOS or Arctics if you are allergic to systemd, and that's about it. Optimizing Windows 11 down to 1.2 gig felt like wading through heaps upon heaps of shit all the way through. It's unbelievable how they managed to absolutely butcher the GOAT OS, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Before we end, I'd like to cover the Windows version this demo was run on, that being 26200.7701, which was the latest as of January 2025. I mean 2020-26. And also, the footprint on disk that we got was about 25 gig, so in line with stock Windows. Also, I don't know if you heard, but we got a new mic, so that's doing miracles. And yeah, sorry for kinda going missing on YouTube and sounding a little dead in the recording, but that's what you get for recording in the AMs. Anyway, I wish you all a fine day, and thank you for watching.